Something a little different today. My name is Chris McAllister. I'm welcoming you to Breaking Brains and Building Hearts. My man Jimmy, welcome. You usually do
Chris.
the welcome. Glad you're here.
Nice job, man.
Brett, glad to have you, buddy. Um, Here we are post Super Bowl weekend. And we know that this is a sports podcast where we bring our sports minds expertise to bear on current relevant sports events. No,
Well,
we are
that was
here to.
that was the big prop bet of the weekend. Sorry to interrupt you, Chris,
No, I love it.
but the biggest prop bet of the weekend was, did Chris watch the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and I haven't confessed out loud, and we're going to do it here on the show. But yeah, for those that are joining us, we are definitely not a sports podcast, but we do talk about sports some. We're helping you lead at your best in our specific areas of expertise with leadership and mindset and sales, and helping you add value to all you do and grow like crazy. And so, Brett, the direct answer is I tried. I tried, man. We had dinner and we go into the living room. I can't remember what we ate. I think we had nachos or subs. We did subs. And so I get the game on. I'm excited. And a little bit into it, I'm like, I know how this is going to play out. You just saw it happening so quick. And I respect like crazy what I want to ask both of y'all about, if you noticed something. But as it was developing, I was like, I don't think I want to watch it. And so we're rewatching the Marvel movies. And we watched the next Marvel movie, and then that got off, and then I watched like the last 15 minutes of the game. Lame, I know.
Yeah. Well, I can't fault you for that. I mean, you were right on. Like by halftime, you're like, you knew how it was going. And then really by the end of the first quarter, it was like, and this is one-sided, and you could see the direction it was headed. I was thinking right before the game started, it's like the only thing you hope for is a good game. And man, it was a domination.
Jimmy,
So I
were
don't
you
blame
able
you
to
for
get into it?
bailing out.
I loved it, man. I was a maniac. I grew up in Buffalo, and back in the 80s, early 90s, I suffered through the Bills losing 4 Super Bowls in a row. Just happened to move to Boston at the right time. Had my 2 kids over there. My wife was born there. Became a Patriots fan very quickly. And man, I'm just amazed at success and achievement. And forget about everything else. If you just look at, what Tom Brady has it been able to do by, just being maniacally focused on mastering parts of his craft and not letting up, not letting noise disrupt him, being maniacally focused. He's doing things that people feel like are impossible. What's also really cool is I don't bet on sports, but I picked a game. I didn't I had no way of knowing that, Kansas City wouldn't score 1 touchdown, but I picked a game, and I was super psyched. Still will not get into sports betting, but I was very proud of the fact that I kind of like was able to be very focused and prescriptive about what I paid attention to, and then call it the way I saw it, and it worked out. Could I have done that on
awesome.
TV? No. Could I have done that in advance? No, but it worked out.
Dude, that's awesome.
I'm coming from the opposite side because I'm from Missouri, and so of course on the Chiefs bandwagon. And but you could see it leading up to the game. I mean, Tampa Bay had been trending upward the last few weeks. Watching Kansas City all year, it was like, all right, they're winning games, but they're not really dominating. And lost a big piece on the line for what I know about football, but that obviously created some problems for them. But what Tom Brady does is incredible. And something that was interesting to caught my eye, but Chris, first I want to hear what you said caught your eye, and what you noticed from the little bit you watched the game.
Okay, well, don't forget yours. So watching on the front end and the back end, especially observant of this on the back end, and I know it is popular to hate him. And that's honestly, the game wasn't exciting to me because I don't need to watch someone else be at the top of their game greatness. I'd rather be that myself. But I respect it so much. I value it so much. I think it's admirable. And so I am not hating him because he's awesome. In fact, I don't have hate for him at all. In fact, I have mad respect. And here was the observation. He didn't sweat. Like, what? I mean, he's not wasting energy. He's not trying. He's just executing. And that was what had me riveted, just riveted, no sweat. And all that means psychologically for the showing up and the preparation and everything.
I'm in a similar boat with you, Chris. Like, I watch a ton of sports and love to watch the championship games and that kind of thing. But I don't gawk at them like in awe of these guys. I'm with you. I'd rather be a participant than a spectator. And so what I want to watch is just marvel at, like, all right, what do these guys know that I don't, or how are these guys operating that I can learn from to get to that level. And notice the same thing, and very similar to what my observation was, very similar to yours, in that, like, Tom Brady is operating at a different level than everyone else in the whole realm of football. Yeah. I mean, this guy is, and guys are like that, like LeBron's in that level. Tiger Woods was in that level. But what fascinated me was watching post game. And cameras are following around Tom Brady through all of the post-game ceremony and pomp and circumstance and stuff. And to see, like, this guy has complete control over everything that's happening. And he was totally cool. Like, there are people running around him celebrating like a little kid. I get it was his 10th Super Bowl, his 7th win, so he's been there, done that. But you could tell he was like, excited for this guy to win his first, and this guy, what it meant for him, and answering the questions, deflecting the praise. But then he sat down to take a picture with his family, and he's like moving people out of the way, like, hey, come on, man, get out of the way, respect us. Like, he was setting the boundaries and had complete control of the environment. Friends are taking selfies, and he's pulling up his shirt to cover the Nike logo on his, because he's an Under Armour athlete. Like, complete control of every surrounding that was happening. And he's operating at another level. And I think, like, Patrick Mahomes is going to be that. Like, he's already investing in the Kansas City communities, got ownership stake in other sports franchises. Like, he's going to get to that level. Right now, he's operating at, his second, third year in the league, where he's still got his youthful athleticism and he's running around, but he's going to get to the point where that stuff is really calculated and not relied on as heavy. But it's just amazing that these guys are on another level.
I'd love to hear your observations like that. And it's so fascinating. And the vibe that I totally got, I'd love to hear what you guys think, is he wasn't playing with something to prove. Mm-hmm. He was just playing out of the overflow. Like, I came to do this and I did it. I'm not surprised I'm here. And my emotion is, yes, a lot of celebration for what they're getting to experience. Not that I didn't need this. And that was just, like, so powerful. And yeah. And we want to compete that way, right? We want to compete against the best in the world so we can be the best in the world, which I think oftentimes the way we talk about it, we're competing against ourselves. But I know the number of times this year that I've had a sales conversation that I've relayed to you, Jimmy, and I've felt like Patrick Mahomes on fire. And then you Tom Brady me, and you're like, well, what about, you're playing at a different level. There are places that I'm playing at a different level, and I'm seeing things in a way that other people aren't. And that, to me, that's the most fascinating thing. It's the mastery. It's the pursuit of that.
Yeah. It takes me back to the beginner pro master concept, and that we talk about all the time. And, it's not it's not awareness that's meant to put somebody in their place. For me, beginner, pro, master is it's a great tool for me to look at how I'm operating and assess, am I at this moment operating at a beginner, pro, master level? And because we're all at different levels depending on what we're doing. If I'm doing a paint by numbers with my daughter, I'm beginner, baby. But if we're talking about sales, or how do we possibly sell a conceptual service into an organization that doesn't think they need it, I can operate at a master level along with other people who operate at a master level. And so it's just really wonderful to ask, where am I? Have that level of awareness, and now I can attack any kind of goal that I have in that moment with a clearer sense of what I have to do. Instead of lamenting about, ooh, I wish I was better, I can just say, okay, where am I? What does it mean about me and the way I'm showing up, given the level that I'm operating at? And since I know what beginner means and pro means and master means to me, I can then now focus on getting to that next step, to that next phase of my development. It's just phenomenal. So, to your point, Brett, a quarterback who's 25 versus one that's 43, a quarterback who's 25 who listens to all the bullshit out there might say, yeah, I'm at the master level. How'd I get here so fast? And everybody put him on the pedestal so quickly, right? It has to make you concerned about, man, are we getting too emotional here? Is this all bullshit? Are we looking at this really with clear eyes, clear vision? And you can ask the question. And then you can say, okay, where is this dude? Yeah, he's a pro, he's accomplished, but has he seen it all? Has he had to overcome it all? Where is he really operating? And maybe he's really at a pro level versus that master level when you think about his role.
A distinction and a controversy. Brett, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Go ahead.
No. I'll remember for sure.
Well, it just made me think. I also laughed at, at the end of the game, the outcome happens and the narratives of the two teams just completely like shit. Like Kansas City was the darlings, the most unbeatable team. Mahomes is the next Hall of Fame quarterback, and then everyone knows what Tom Brady is. But then at the end of the game, Tampa Bay is the most complete team in the NFL. Every phase of the game. I was like, well, you weren't saying that in December. It's just funny how outcomes shift the narrative so quickly. And I'm sure, we've talked about this before, but guys on that stage, how the highs and lows swing so fast with every result, that they have to have a level of detachment from the results and detachment from the outside noise to know, I'm not defined by these labels others are putting on me or defined by one single outcome. It's all just lessons to be learned and information to be stored away for future use. But
Right on.
Yeah, that was another fascinating thing to me.
Dude, the common knowledge game changes so fast once a result thwarts whatever that common knowledge is. It's so crazy to watch, like, media and public voices. You saw it around GameStop and what happened in stock markets last week, which really for me was probably the biggest news thing. The biggest performance thing was the Super Bowl, but the biggest news thing was all that was happening in the stock market. And all of that, though, is the same idea. It's, nothing matters as much as the story that everybody believes. It doesn't matter really what's true and what's not true in these matters. It's the story that everybody believes. Okay, so here's a distinction I want to run by you guys, and then there's a controversy I want to ask you about. Awesome. Since we're on this theme of mastery and greatness in the Super Bowl. Distinction. A beginner is learning all of these things that they weren't aware of. All this matters. All the input signals. A pro is learning to prioritize what matters. A master, and this is only from my observation, I'm just checking it with y'all now. A master gets really zeroed in on, like, at another level what doesn't matter. Like, they're just so tuned to a few inputs that make all the other things, fall into place. Help me come up with a better way of saying that. Does that seem off to you guys? It's just something I've been thinking about post the game.
How does that apply to the 80-20 rule, Chris? I mean, is it kind of along the same lines?
Yeah, well, I mean, that you're starting out on the 80-20 journey to be like 20% matters. But an advanced application of the 80-20 journey is to 80-20 that, right? It's fractal. So your day today, 20% of what you do matters more than 80% of it, but really up 1 or 2% of that matters the most. And I want to come up with a better way of saying it, but the shift I've seen in my life at a number of levels, and I've seen this in other people's level up, when they go to that master level of something, they're able to just see even that 18% of that 20% go away. So they're not rigidly trying to defend and go, like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. They're just so zeroed in on what does matter. Yeah. So anyway, a distinction I've noticed. There's got to be a better way to say it because it's not resonating with me a ton, but it's still something I've seen.
So I'm going to ask more questions about that to you, Chris, and Jimmy. From a leader's perspective, so in basketball, when we're coaching, everyone's talking about what are your non-negotiables. What are the things that matter most. And from a leader perspective, you're also trying to delegate, get the team involved, more people to contribute. So maybe you're dialing in on 2 or 3 things that, like, these are non-negotiable. These matter most. These have to happen. The rest of it, we can get creative and negotiate, and we have some give and take. There's some gray area, but like these 3 things for sure have to happen for us to even have a chance, or they'll make the biggest impact. Or if we do these 3 things, they impact, all these other decisions we're going to make. Does that kind of line up with what you're thinking, Chris, as far as, focusing on the 2% that matters the most?
Yeah, but a little bit of this energy, and I'm going to tie it to company culture, and then it will take us to the controversy. Franklin Covey has that example in the Habits of Effective People that, like, how do you get to your priorities? You don't put sand in the jar. You put your rocks in the jar, and then you put the sand in, because you've got to let the main things be there, that, they're not crowded out by the lesser things. Okay, but here's my take on it. This is just my experience. Because so few people, the word mastery is thrown around a ton. All 3 of us I know obsess over mindset and performance. So for those that are listening, just know that we are not using this term lightly. It's something we think and talk about all the time. However, for me, in productivity and performance and achievement, truly leaps of amazing performance and insight, there is no canister. It's not like, oh, here's the priorities, and now here's all it's just like, here's the thing. Here's the obsessive thing. This obsessive thing is the thing, is the thing, is the thing. Nothing else matters. Does that help color that in some more, Jimmy? I see you nodding.
Well, yeah. And it's interesting. I think I can track to it. When Brett was talking, I was thinking pattern recognition, right? Think of, because I know how I operate. I know how a CFO who's been doing numbers for 30 years and understands the strategic implication of the numbers she's looking at. She can look at a balance sheet or income statement and pick out the 5 numbers that are going to move the business forward. Everything else is bullshit. But it's this pattern recognition capability from situation to situation. So yeah, I think if you're carrying something around, Chris, yeah, it's this level of awareness that recognizes patterns and the essence, the most essential part of the pattern, and then knows what to do with it. If you think of Tom Brady looking at the defense and understanding what it means for his offense, changing the play, audible at the line, to take advantage of a weakness. That is pattern recognition and then decision making based on the evidence that you see. But that comes from experience. It comes from mistakes. It comes from paying attention. I'm the same way. You bring me a challenge from a sales perspective or an organizational development perspective for a company who's driving growth. I can ask 3 or 4 questions and get right to the meat of it, identify the priority to your point, Chris, and then move.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so I think about this like with consulting with companies. I don't, I can know in a meeting what are the top 3 things that are going to move the needle the most. And from a leadership standpoint and what has to be done and a prioritization of that. And so you could say of those top 3 things, this one thing matters more than another. So it's kind of like this. If somebody's a beginner at building a healthy leadership culture, you got all these input signals that you're starting to notice. At a pro level, I can shrink it down. It's really just 4 actions. Accept the culture as it is because it's changing all the time. Move with vision and values consistently. Make sure that you're always working for the unity of the relationships. Relationships need continual deposits and never get attached to a system. Systems always improve and change. You've never found the best way to do anything. If you build a dashboard and watch those 4 things at a pro level, you will be amazing at building a culture. What makes you at a master level though is you're obsessed in an overflow way, not forcing it, not hype, with this is the thing. Everything comes out of this. Like, and I know I'm being a little ethereal, but like I'm thinking about this with SiteShift, where we're at right now. I know the thing that makes everything else the different is to align the understanding around what it means to go through these transformational experiences in group cohorts, not just the one-to-one. Everything else like falls out of that. So, and I could be wrong. There's no certainty. But there's at least clarity. So it's kind of like changing the analogy. It's like the pro level is prioritization. The master level is understanding this is it. It's this, and this. Now, here that takes us to the controversy. Any other thoughts on that? And then I want to ask you about controversy. Okay.
Do it.
Here's where the controversy would go. What matters more than one amazing, strong leader? So, we want to believe this idea of leadership and that everything we do, it all matters. And I understand like in soccer, which is a weak link sport, we're using football, which is a strong link sport. Maybe some businesses are strong link and some businesses are weak link. Maybe all businesses are weak link. You're going to be helped. However, I look at Tesla, what Elon Musk has done just through commentary to drive the value of the company up so that they have assets now, and like it's like phase 1, he understood people have to want this car. It has to be so amazing and sexy and cool. And the price point can be at such a point that it's high enough that it funds that. Then we'll get to mass market. He had an obsessive vision. Then he's driving the narrative, increases the stock value like crazy, and then they just bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin, and they're going to take payments in Bitcoin. I mean, he personally just advanced the movement away from a fiat currency. Who knows what will actually happen? Maybe they'll regulate it in some way. All that to say, look at the impact one strong player has. Not just one mediocre strong, like one amazingly strong player. And he understands memes, by the way. He knows what he's doing. Look at the impact Tom Brady has on a team. The controversy here is it doesn't make us feel too good, right?
Well, maybe the controversy is that just like when you hit black belt, there's, I don't know how many number of degrees of black belt you can achieve, right? But there are degrees within mastery. Maybe that's what we're talking about. I mean, and there are a few folks that have a combination of capabilities that allow them to operate at a level that, mortal human beings just can't envision. And maybe they couldn't have envisioned either without the guiding discipline or values and vision that they had when they started. I mean, Brady never said, I'm going to win 7 Super Bowls. He said, I'm going to be the very best I can be every day and win championships. That's all I'm focused on doing. And he sacrificed everything he had to get there.
Process over the
for
results.
20 years.
Yeah. Process over results. This is also why we started off with that Queen song, because he says in it, I am immortal. I have the sacred blood of kings. I'll leave you to listeners to analyze that psychologically. Brett?
Well, I'm thinking maybe the controversy for a lot of us is that you might be right. And the downside of that is most of us are at the mercy of the strength of our leadership. There were a lot of players who were on Tampa Bay before this season. And then now, they were working and struggling and trying their hardest and doing their best. Couldn't get where they wanted until they got Tom Brady there. There were some that had to get traded or moved to get Tom Brady and Gronk and Antonio Brown. Right. There's some, we've all experienced bad leadership. Most recently, I don't want to take us podcast in the wrong direction, but it doesn't need a name to identify it. So for a lot of us, we're driven, ambitious, and want to get to that level where we are the strong leaders. Most of us are going to be subjected to other leadership, and that's going to have a big implication on what we're able to do.
So let me take it to the next level. So, one of the things that I don't think I've heard anyone mention in the media relative to Tom Brady is think about where he was for 20 freaking years, man. He was under the tutelage of perhaps the best coach in the history of the game. Right.
Talk about controversy.
But I mean, the idea is that we all stand on the shoulders of other people. Right. And so to your point, Brett, there might be people on Tampa Bay's team with the potential that Tom had 20 years ago. They didn't have the environment or the leaders around them to learn from to get them there. Right. They haven't had it. And Tom comes and he's not just bringing himself, he's bringing everything he learned over those 20 years and those 6 other championships with him. So he has, and he always does this. He always thanks other people first. He always points to the people around him that contributed. He may be paid attention. He practiced a little bit of alchemy and put things together in a unique way that only he could. But I think this supports your point, Brett. Yeah, I mean, we may have potential, but if we don't put ourselves or aren't put in positions that can advance us, then we may be just subject, we may be only available to. The only opportunity available to us might be that to languish, right? Think of how many people that played basketball that had the potential to be multi-time champions and weren't even champions once.
Well, that's what LeBron says about going to Miami. He spent all those years in Cleveland and got pretty far, Eastern Conference finals, goes to Miami and he says, I had to learn how to win. I had to learn how to be, and there was something about Pat Riley being there in Miami and the culture they had set up and the environment there that set him on the trajectory that I guess accelerated or took him another step farther. So to your point there, I mean, that environment makes a difference.
Two things this makes me feel really strong. One is going to be practical for everybody. Maybe both are practical for everybody. And then there's a second one. I'll go with the second one first. When I was like at 28 or 29, through personal experience, I formed a conclusion, which is always where the best learnings come from, if they're formed on reality. It doesn't matter how good you try to be. You can never outgood the environment the top leader brings. In other words, I stayed late. I went like crazy, read the books, did the learning, did the coaching, spent time with everybody, was getting coached. Like people were like, Chris, you're a great leader. All the accolades around great leader, blah, 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 blah. everything I did was gone in months because the top leader was like, time for you to go. And we're making this go back this way. All that work. And I was like, man, it doesn't matter how healthy you try to lead, how much you want to be a person of growth. You'll never outdo, right? That top leader. And so for me, very much this strong link idea, that top leader matters so much. The second thing that I think could speak to all of us is, what's the knowledge gap we need to close in our next step towards mastery? So for LeBron, it was the winning, right? I got to go learn how to win. I think I know what mine is. I'll run it by you guys after the recording.
Well, I think you're just
private. No,
you're saying. I think you're saying that you're saying the same thing. I think you at your environment, whether it seems like you didn't know it, you had to be told it, but you developed your leadership skills beyond the capacity of the leader you were working with to teach you anymore, or to help you get any further. So you didn't see it. It sounds like he had to tell you, hey man, you're out of here, go do something else. LeBron performed to the ability, of the people around him who were leading his team. And he said, you know what, I know I need to advance and I can't advance here. Let me go somewhere else. To me, this is really interesting because it speaks to what we all do in the context of our careers and the parts of our lives that are really, really important to us. Many of us go out into the world looking for, what can the world do for me? And many of us get that, velvet 2x4 that we weren't expecting with hey, we got to let you go, or hey, you're not the right fit or whatever. But what about our ability to recognize whether we should be going, we're not the right fit? What about our ability to recognize that it's time for us to change? I mean, there's a lot to be said for a guy who's that smart as LeBron was, to just say, look, I can't get any further being here. I've got to make the tough decision and move on. Yeah, that is a level of mastery, self-awareness that I think anybody could benefit from aspiring to.
Here's the conversation I want to hear about is when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, he didn't just go there and say, how much money you got for me? And cool, I'll come there. We'll turn this thing into a champion. He said, I'll come there, but this is what we need to win a Super Bowl. And he knew exactly what, and maybe it was Gronk, Antonio Brown, but whatever it was, he knew the pieces. He's like, I need this, this, and this. And this is going back to your point, Chris, of like knowing what matters, what doesn't matter. But LeBron, he went to Miami. He learned something. He went back to Cleveland and said, we'll win a championship. I need this, this, and this.
Right.
And then he goes to LA and he says, I'll get you to the finals, but I need this, this, and this.
There you go.
And they learned what those things were. And so that's the conversation I would love to have been in. It's like when they were recording Tom Brady and he said, this is what I need to get us to a Super Bowl. What were those things? What did he figure out?
And then they figured out that he needed to be the on-field commander, right? Because they were struggling. And then the coach just said, look, man, you coach it. You coach the offense. You call the plays. You go. Because the coach recognized that they weren't capable, one, and that he was eminently more capable.
This is we never covered the comment on Belichick, which would be interesting for him to come out and go, hey, he made me in so many ways who I am. I would hope that if he thought that, he'll say that just so that he can quiet that controversy. And it does make sense that would be the case. There's no way Tom plays at the level that he does and stayed way too long in a dysfunctional culture. Those two don't match up. He would have left way long ago. So I called it controversy, but I agree with you, Jimmy. So here's the thing for me that I'm really moved by right now. And I want to say it directly to people that could be listening to this, and then any closing thoughts from you guys, and I can do the sign off. But, I honestly do believe that you can learn to have that kind of self-assurance that is formed by awareness to come into an environment and go, it has to be these three things. I do think you can learn that. I do think also there are probably a ton of young leaders that listen to this that beat themselves up. They have that same brashness. And I want to speak to them and tell them, keep being you. Because I was literally 21, voted into a public leadership role. And I said, I will not come unless you do these three things. And it was right. I was right. No, holy cow. Was I wrong about things and how I did them? But those three big things were right, right? And I can deconstruct so much of my immaturities and had tons of them and still have some. But for those leaders out there, it takes so much courage to actually form a conviction and speak it out loud and go do it. And I think, Breaking Brains, Building Hearts, we're pro those people that are out there making something happen, pursuing mastery, getting knocked down, learning from it. Anything you guys want to say before we sign off?
That just makes me think of when I was working for my college coach, and me and the other assistant, we were looking around for jobs and hoping to be head coaches one day. And he was like, the worst thing you could do is go take a bad job. And he was talking about the environment you're walking into. And it's similar to what you were saying, like, be careful not to leave a good environment for a bad environment thinking you could save the world. But if you can get into that conviction of, I'm a leader, this is what I can bring, this is where I know it can be successful, I need these three things to do it, then hold true to that. Because you could end up in a bad environment and you're not gonna be able to overcome that.
Right. And I think what to leverage what you just said, you're saying to me, what you're saying to me is, you have to be aware of what's going to be the multiplier in your life, right? So many of us go for the money, right? And that soothes our ego and makes the people around us, feel like that we're making progress. But when you make a decision to invest in the environment, you have the ability to create a multiplier effect in your career and in your life that you can't get from that money or that recognition in the short term. So it's back to, I think, what you said, Chris. Can you identify the things that are most important? Can you, from a master level, start with those priorities that are going to be the most impactful, most valuable, most important? And then can you act on them? Can you make the decision and then take the action?
Right on. Thanks everybody for being here. Breaking Brains, Building Hearts, Sports Style. Peace.